These are the 10 biggest bombs in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you see these cards in draft or sealed, you should really try to fit them into your decks because they are fantastic and will help you win more games. First up is April O'Neil, Hacktivist. For 3 and a blue, you get a 1/5 legendary human scientist that says, at the beginning of your end step, draw a card for each card type among spells you've cast this turn. So April by itself, if you just play it on turn 4, it counts as a creature because card types are things like creatures, instants, sorceries, enchantments, artifacts, those sorts of things. And so if you play April on turn 4, you're going to go to your end step, draw the 1 card because you've played a creature that turn. And if you get this into the mid game or it survives a couple of turns, you can chain multiple spells together. So do something like cast a sorcery and cast a creature and then draw 2 cards on your end step. And you're just running away with card advantage. It's really hard for your opponent to interact with this profitably because you're almost always getting at least 1 card out of the deal, and it even blocks decently well as a 1/5. This card is stellar. Next up is Savanti Romero, Time's Exile. For 3 black, you get a 4/4 legendary demon wizard that has trample, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Savanti Romero. Then you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of counters on Savanti Romero. So again, you're going to be getting a card out of this pretty much every time, unless your opponent somehow kills it before you get to combat on your turn. Play this on your first main phase, put a counter on it, draw a card, and then even if your opponent does interact with it, you end up with getting a card back out of it. If it does survive, however, by the time you get to your next combat, you're going to put 2 more counters on it, draw 2 more cards, and even though you're losing a bit of life in this exchange, you're getting plenty of card advantage. There are food tokens in this set to help you recoup some of that life loss if it's necessary, and you're hitting your opponent with a giant creature that's only getting bigger while drawing you tons of cards. This is fantastic. Next up is Agent Bishop, Man in Black. For 2 and a white, you get a 1/2 legendary human soldier that says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. So you can target Agent Bishop with this. So you play this on turn 3 after playing a 2-drop on turn 2. All of a sudden your 2-drop gets bigger. Agent Bishop gets to get a counter on him as well. And then on your next turn, maybe you play another creature, distribute 2 more counters. Basically, if this card doesn't die very quickly, you're going to just turn all of your creatures into absolute monsters and win the game in a hurry. Agent Bishop also can just distribute counters onto other creatures. You don't have to put the counters onto himself ever. So you can just make your other threats more powerful and then force your opponent to kill Agent Bishop while it stays small. Or if you need to, you can just grow Agent Bishop as well. It's got a lot of flexibility, a lot of power level, and it's a must-answer threat that comes down relatively early and can snowball the game in a hurry. Next up is Mikey and Dawn, Party Planners. For 2, then blue-green hybrid mana, so 2 and then green, or 2 blue, or 2 blue-green. You get a 3/3 legendary Mutant Ninja Turtle. It's got Ward 2, so it's a little bit hard to interact with. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play lands and cast mutant, ninja, or turtle spells from the top of your library. If you cast a creature spell this way, that creature enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So 4 mana for a 3/3 is a bit small, but it does get protection from removal a little bit thanks to that Ward 2. And the fact that you can play lands off the top of your deck and cast mutant, ninja, or turtle spells means that you're going to be getting a lot of card advantage out of this. If you have a land on top, you just get to play it instead of drawing it. And then there are a good number of mutants, ninjas, and turtles in this set. And so you're oftentimes going to be able to maybe play a couple of lands off this, cast a creature or maybe even 2 off this. The creature comes into play a little bit bigger. And Mikey and Dawn is kind of a threat that has to be answered because it just kind of runs away with card advantage as well. Playing lands off the top of your deck is definitely a really powerful ability, even though it might not seem like much. Oh, you're just playing the lands, but then it just means that you're going to be drawing generally more spells when you already get to play the lands. It's like you have access to extra resources that every time you play a land off the top of your deck, it's like you drew a card almost. So Mikey and Dawn, fantastic card, hard to interact with for your opponents. It is a little bit small on its own, but Ward 2 does give it some protection from your opponent's removal spells to help it survive, even though it's got a little bit of a smaller stat line than you might like for a 4-drop. Still, great card and must-answer threat that's going to be really, really powerful. Next up is Armagon, Future Shark. For 6 black, you get a 9/6 legendary shark horror mutant. It's got flash, and when Armagon enters, destroy up to 3 target creatures. This is basically an 8 mana win the game because you're going to just kill basically all of your opponent's creatures. Sometimes they won't have 3 creatures that you care about killing. That doesn't really matter. You're getting a 9/6 and killing 3 things from their board state. Almost no scenario is possible where your opponent has like 4 threats that are like absolutely giant. You're killing 3 things. They're going to be left with basically nothing, and you have a 9/6. And it even has flash, so you can cast this during combat. So they make an attack with their whole board state. You kill all their stuff, and then you get to even block something, maybe eat something in combat. do it on their end step so they aren't expecting it. The downside of this card is it does cost 8 mana, but it is pretty much an I win the game if I cast this button. And so even though it does cost 8 mana, the times where you get to cast this, you win such a high percentage of the time that it's still worth including in your deck, and then prioritizing maybe building up towards this, having maybe a little bit of mana ramp in your deck, or making sure you have some ways to like stall out the game so that you can cast your Armagon and win, because it's just an absolutely nightmarish card to deal with and is going to end a lot of games. Next up is Sally Pride, Lioness Leader. For 3 white, you get a 2/4 legendary cat mutant rebel. And when Sally Pride enters, create X 2/2 red mutant creature tokens, where X is the number of non-token creatures you control. Whenever Sally Pride attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So even if you have no other creatures in play, you play Sally Pride, and that Sally Pride is a non-token creature, and so you're going to get at least one 2/2 mutant creature out of the deal. So that's a 2/4 plus a 2/2 for 5 mana. If you have one creature in play, you're getting 2 2/2s and a 2/4. And if you have like 2 creatures in play, you're getting 3 2/2s in the Sally Pride. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Like 2 creatures before playing Sally Pride is what I mean. And then when it attacks, you put a counter on each creature you control. So just absolutely massive swings. So you just get to make a big army and then attack with everything and just crush your opponent. This card is going to be really, really hard to deal with. If you have this card, make sure you try to avoid making trades if you can, because if you have 3 creatures and your opponent has 3 creatures, when you play Sally Pride, you're going to be a lot happier, because not only are you getting more 2/2s out of the deal, but you're also going to be buffing more creatures when you do eventually attack with the Sally Pride. So just an absolutely devastating card, and going to be really hard to beat it, and a card you're really hoping to have in your own draft. Next up is Northwind Avatar. For 2 blue, red, you get a 5/5 Dragon Spirit Avatar. It's flying, and when this creature enters, if you cast it, you may put a card you own from outside the game into your hand. Now, in a game of Limited, outside of the game is your sideboard, so that just means cards that you have access to from your sealed pool or from cards that you've drafted, which oftentimes you're going to have a couple of cards that you didn't quite have room for in your deck. So maybe there's a clunky removal spell, or maybe there's a creature that's a bit expensive that you didn't really want to draw. But when you play Northwind Avatar, all of a sudden you gain access to a lot of options, because you'll maybe have 3 or 4 cards that you could pick. You can pick up basic lands with this as well, because those count as being in your sideboard in Limited as well. So if you really need to hit that 6th land drop, basically gives you a little bit of flexibility and a giant 5 mana 5/5 flyer, because don't forget, a 5 mana 5/5 flyer is going to end the game in an absolute hurry. It's a giant creature, gets you a card back out of the deal, so even if your opponent kills it, you're still going to end up with a card for your troubles. And Northwind Avatar is going to be a must deal with threat, a card you're really happy to have, and a really powerful top end card. Next up is Triceraton Commander. It's XX white for a 2/2 dinosaur soldier with flying. Whenever this creature attacks, dinosaurs you control other than this creature get +1/+1 and gain flying until end of turn. And when it enters, you get X 2/2 white dinosaur soldier creature token. So if you play this for just white, you get a 2/2 flyer, which isn't really what you want to be doing, because you aren't getting any tokens. If you play X = 1, you get 4 mana for a 2/2 ground creature and a 2/2 flyer. But when it attacks, it basically attacks for 5, which is already pretty good, because the 2/2 ground creature becomes a 3/3 flyer at that point, because it's going to get buffed up, which is also pretty nice. And then if you get X = 2, you get 2 2/2 ground creatures. It just scales into the game really well, and there's a lot of synergies with this card as well in the set. The red-white archetype cares about having a bunch of creatures come into play because of the alliance mechanic, and the black-white deck cares about the sneak mechanic, which having an evasive creature that you can then sneak to return to your hand to cast a sneak card means that you can play Triceraton Commander, attack with it, sneak it back to your hand, and then cast Triceraton Commander again to get even more tokens and just an even bigger army. So it has really great synergy with the set, and if you top deck it in the late game, it's going to be really hard for your opponents to beat as well, and it's just a fantastic card with great flexibility. The next up is Kitsune, Dragon's Daughter. For 4 blue, you get a 6/6 legendary Fox Warlock Avatar with Vigilance. Whenever Kitsune enters or deals combat damage to a player, you may exchange control of 2 other target creatures controlled by different players. So when you get to the top end of your curve, you can play your Kitsune, take your worst creature and trade it for your opponent's best creature, while also developing a 6/6 Vigilance creature. Because a 6/6 Vigilance creature is a big body in the game of Magic the Gathering, especially in Limited. Good top end stats already, and you get to take your opponent's best card and give them your best creature, and you give them your worst creature. So oftentimes you'll know this is coming, so you'll keep around maybe your random 2/2 creature or something of that nature, and you get to give your opponent something bad, get something good. So you not only are getting a 6/6 for your troubles, but you're also upgrading one of your worst creature into their best creature. So you're oftentimes going to get a really good deal out of this. And then if it does deal combat damage, you can swap for whatever next creature they play, which is better than it sounds, because you might think, oh, they're just not going to play any more good creatures. But if they don't play any more good creatures, then Kitsune is just going to kill them by hitting them for 6 every turn. So you can imagine a scenario where you play Kitsune, take their 4/4 and give them like a 1/1 or a 2/2 or something like that. Then next turn they play like a 4/4 and they like kind of have to then double block the Kitsune with their 4/4 and the 2/2 you just gave them, because otherwise you're just going to swap another bad creature to get the 4/4. So you can put a lot of pressure on them to double block, things like of that nature. And you're also hitting them with whatever big creature you took from them. So just a really nice top end card for blue decks. Even though sometimes swap cards aren't exactly where you want to be in limited, adding a 6/6 body in addition to doing the swap is really, really nice. Next up is the Last Ronin. For 4 black green, you get a saga. So the first chapter when it comes into play is destroy all creatures. So a nice board wipe. Then the second chapter, mill 4 cards. When you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So you don't have to return one of the cards you milled. If you killed a good creature of your own, when you destroyed all creatures, you can return that one as well, but you get to get a little bit more card selection by milling 4 cards. So you get to destroy all creatures, then the next turn you get to help redeploy your board by helping you like get back your best creature from your graveyard after milling 4. And then chapter 3 is whenever a creature you control attacks alone this turn, you put 3 counters on, +1/+1 counters on it. It gains trample, lifelink, and indestructible until end of turn. So you destroy all creatures, then you get to get back your best creature from your graveyard and play it presumably, because you're going to have a lot of mana because this costs 6 mana. And then the next turn, that creature becomes like really, really powerful, gains you a bunch of life, gets trample, and so kind of becomes a must deal with threat no matter which creature you return. So a really, really powerful card and a great top end threat for your black-green decks. And it's going to be really hard to beat because it's just a board sweeper that then gets you something really big and then gives you a massive creature eventually if you're able to get that third trigger to actually land on a creature where your opponent doesn't just kill the creature you were planning on attacking with. So Last Ronin, a really good top end threat for black-green. And also a card that you could splash if you're playing a green deck because it's not that hard to get a single black pip into your deck. Now, the final card I want to mention, this is a bit of a bonus card, is a reprint of Umezawa's Jitte. It's very, very infrequent that you're going to be seeing these cards in your events, but it is worth shouting out because it is one of, if not the best limited cards ever made. Umezawa's Jitte, or Raph's Jitte in this case, is a legendary artifact equipment. When a creature deals combat damage, you put 2 charge counters onto the Jitte. Then you can remove a charge counter to either give the equipped creature +2/+2, give a creature -1/-1, or gain 2 life. So you play this, and then any of your creatures, basically the way it's going to end up working, you can just attack in with them. If you have like a 2/2 creature and your opponent has a 2/2 creature, they kind of have to trade because they don't want you to just hit them with Jitte over and over. And then the Jitte is going to get the counters because it doesn't say when it deals damage to a player. It's just if the creature deals damage. So creatures interacting in combat, then the next creature is really hard to deal with because it can get +2/+2, or you can shrink down their creatures, use it as a kill spell. It's just a really, really very hard card to beat, turns any of your creatures into like threats that are almost impossible to defeat, and it's going to be a really, really powerful card in the infrequent cases where it does come up, so I did want to mention it. That's going to do it for this video, though. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, leave #TheBest in the comments section down below, because these are the best cards in the set that will help you do the best in your drafts. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you next time.